Let's talk about knives. I've been a professional chef for many years now, and I've gone through a lot of knives, and I'm going to show you which ones I use on a daily basis, and I'm going to share why I use them. First of all, I have my 9-inch chef's knife, which is my go-to knife for everything, basically. Chopping, dicing, meat, it is my go-to that I always carry in my knife roll. And this is one by Wusthof. It's beautiful. It's a 9-inch. This is my go-to basically for anything, like I said. Then there's my Santoku. I love my Santoku for chopping onions or herbs and things like that. It's got a hollow edge, so it's nice and light to the touch. It's very light. You can chop basically all day in it. You do have to be careful on hollow edges. The edge is a little bit thin, so you don't want to press down too hard, and you definitely don't want to be cutting any bones or anything with a hollow edge Santoku. But this is a wonderful knife to go to for lettuces, herbs, things like that. Moving on to fish. I believe in always getting my fish whole. I love butchering fish for some weird reason, but I do. When I worked in a restaurant, one of my positions was just butchering fish all day, and I was pretty much in heaven. So I definitely got to know my boning knives. These are my two favorites. I'm going to show you why I love these. I believe you need to have different knives for different fish. These both are flexible boning knives, and as you can see, this one flexes more than the other. Than this one. This one's more sturdy. So I love the flexible boning knife that's more flexible. I use this on gentle fish like trout, things like that with gentle bones that are easy to cut, versus my less flexible boning knife. This gets me close to the ribs, but I use this on like stripers, sand bass, things like that, fish that are more tough. I like this knife instead. So these are my go-to boning knives for fish. Then we always cook chicken in our kitchen. So I always cook my chicken whole. But I do have to debone my chicken. I'm sure y'all do it too. And this is my favorite boning knife. This knife has a curved blade, which I love. So when you're slicing in between those joints, it gets it in one fell swoop. That's what I love about this curved boning knife. It works perfect for ribs, for Frenching a veal rack, for instance, or a lamb rack. This is perfect. And your go-to for Thanksgiving, carving your chicken. This is the guy you want in your arsenal. Then there's my serrated knife. Have y'all ever tried to cut a tomato with like a non-serrated knife? It is difficult. So tomatoes are great for serrated knives, and serrated knives are always great for other things, but I'd say tomatoes are probably the number one thing. I use a serrated knife for cheese. I use it for bread. I prefer about this 6-inch serrated knife because I feel it gets everything done. I can slice baguettes. I can slice tomatoes. I like my knives to have multi-function, so this serrated knife is one of my favorites. Moving on to paring knives. This little guy, besides my chef's knife, is probably what gets the most use as well for those little herbs, chopping fresh oregano, fresh rosemary, just making little slits into things. This little paring knife is my go-to. I really do use them for everything. I use them for garnishes if I'm doing mushrooms and things like that. It's the perfect size for my hand to get things done if I'm like making little pretty designs on mushrooms, doing garnishes, herbs. It's really gentle on herbs. You never want to bruise your herbs. Say if I was cutting my herbs with my chef's knife, I'm probably going to bruise them because my knife is so heavy, and you don't want your herbs to look all yucky. So picking a knife can be confusing. You have the cheap versions or the more expensive ones. And as a professional chef, I highly recommend you take the money and time and invest in a good knife set. It will pay off in the long run. When you invest in your knives, for one, they're going to stay sharper longer. They're going to sharpen more easily, and they're going to work a lot better. And most of all, they're going to last so much longer than the cheaper versions you can buy for like a whole set in those stores. Definitely invest in the knives. If you can't afford a whole arsenal of knives at one time, invest in pieces. And if you're going to do that, I would say start with your chef's knife, go with a serrated knife, and a paring knife. If you have those three starting off in your kitchen, you're golden. Invest in those three pieces first, and your knives are going to get you through anything in the kitchen. To see how I use my Wusthof knives, tune in to my series Wilderness to Table to see them in action.